Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? I've got a busy day today and I'm going to be out and about doing things. So I'm only going to do this one video today and maybe one tonight or something. But we're going to look here at this book that I got yesterday, The California Mission Myth. Now, I've been to a lot of these California missions, a lot of them, not all of them, but most of them as a kid. Grew up near one and been to one many times, the San Juan Capistrano. They have swallows that fly in and nest there. Every single year, they fly back on the exact same day. So it's a big event. It's a big event. And it was really quite awesome that these missionaries were able to pick a spot that these birds loved so much. It's just absolutely crazy. Not crazy, beautiful. Now, we're going to take a look at these California missions. Now, there's not a lot of pictures in here. It's mostly reading, but we're going to look at this picture here. These are the different missions that arose in California. It shows the date that they were constructed. I don't know if that's the beginning date or the end date, but one of the first ones was in July of 1769. That's before America was born. This one here in San Diego, San Juan Capistrano, was in 1776. That's the year America was born. I'm giving you a time frame of what was happening. On the east coast of America, we were fighting with musket balls and sabers and swords in crude fashion. And on the west coast, they were putting in missions of God and peace. Kind of interesting, yeah? At the exact same time. Now, as these missions went up, they all got put up to get in a time frame of 50 years. That's what they say. These were all built. A few of them, ironically, were built on the same year. But hey, a lot was going on the West Coast. A lot of Spaniards, were coming up and wanting to save the Indians settlers here. So they were so concerned about the American Indians, because that's who was here, right? There was no Americans here. English, Saxon, future Americans, people from the West Coast, they weren't over here, right? There were ships that were coming in. It was starting to be used in, like, say, San Francisco and the ports. But people weren't bringing commerce over here to sell to people. They're settlers. Is how the story goes. And again, all these were built in a 50-year time frame. The last one being built in 1823. Okay? In 1823 was the last one. So in 50 years, all of these were built. 1823. 70 years later, from 1823, from the last one that was built, brings us up to the 1900s. And then when we look at all of these in 1900, they're all abandoned. Now, the church didn't leave, and the religion didn't leave. They built other churches that were nicer and more, fancy. But for some reason, they abandoned every single one of these missions. Because when we look at the photos from 1900s, only 80 years later, not only they are abandoned, but they're in disarray and very old looking buildings. Very old looking buildings. Here's San Juan Capistrano, the actual place I was just talking about, with the sparrows. And like I say, we can see at the turn of the century here, their gardens going. And when you go there now, these gardens are huge. But if they were building these for missions, and this one was built in 1776, it took them 200 years to get a garden to look like this. 200 years later, after it was built, this is what the photo looks like. That was the only progress they got. And look how old all this is. But if you go there now, 100 years later, after this photo, nothing's changed. These rocks look the same. They look the same. You know, again, they've got these missions. They build all these things. 1883 is a, you know, photo of this. But it's abandoned. Just a few short years after it's built. I mean, here we go. 1883. Now, it's just an etching, but you can see it's all here and the people are here. But look, it's already disarrayed. It's crumbling. It's crumbling. It's falling apart. This isn't a construction picture etching. It's destruction. But they're still using this part that's still good. Can you imagine building this and then just walking away from it and abandoning this? Why? Now, as I've been saying that these buildings that have been these old antiquitous buildings and these missions and these other type things, I'm telling you they are slaughterhouses. They're slaughterhouses. I mean, let's just look at the story, right? Just what they're telling us, and let's ask ourselves something. If these were all built at the same time right before America was being in existence, and nobody's here but Native American Indians, there's so much land right outside your back door on the East Coast coming this way that, you know, I don't imagine this being that important to you at this particular part in time. I don't know what the mindset was, but they built all of these here, and then they abandon them, and then there's no people here, and then there's no people here. It's an empty land. It's empty land, right? We came over and then conquered this area, right? With nobody there, or just a few Native American Indians. I say these are slaughterhouses. These are crazy too. I'm going to stop for a second. Look at these pictures and the detail. We don't have this kind of detail in the 1980s, 1990s in color. Look at the detail. It's weird how that shelf's floating. See how it's got well, now another, you see this one here? Everybody's like, oh, look at those crazy dresses, right? I propose something here. You see how she's got the dress up on this chair? Okay. And what those are supposed to be just hoops. But if we look, we don't keep seeing hoops going around. We maybe see one hoop up here that's draping, and I'm saying that there's something holding that out there, right? But it's not these hoops. But what is interesting to me is look how she's resting her hands. They're actually resting on something. And it's not the hoop of her dress, right? And so you can see that she's got something here that makes it look like her dress, that she's got her hands on. Gosh, I wish I wouldn't have talked about that because I see something different. I apologize. But anyways, just the detail and clarity of those. But okay, so now here is early 1900s. You see how it's all in ruins? They're telling us this thing was built only less than 100 years earlier. And it's already, look at the weather marks and the destruction of this. In 100 years, they built this and then let it get to this point in less than 100 years, in only 80 years. Back to the slaughterhouses. This is the San Gabriel mission. And this is a picture of the graveyard where several thousand Indians are buried. Several thousand. Okay. Several. 1,000 is 1,000. 2,000 is a couple thousand. Anything over 3,000 is a few. Anything over 3,000. They're saying that mission was only open for 50, 60 years. Let's even give it the credit of 100 years. At 3,000, what they're saying, of burials, divided by, that's 300 people a year that they were killing. Just pictures. That's one per day. at that one mission of just graves we can see. There's Slaughter